Welcome today to Living Ultra with Harvey and Kelly and Carly. So you have some questions for me from Western States.
I do. So we're going to recap Western States 100. I'll link your pre-race interview right here. And so you can check it out. So this is kind of a follow-up from Western States. And I know you had some followers that asked some questions.
That's great.
Yeah, and there's some really great questions on here. So let's get started. First of all, congratulations on Western States finish.
Well, thanks, honey.
Yeah,
congratulations on being a part of the crew that absolutely helped me.
Yeah, so I was, you had two crews, and I ended up covering, so I only went to half the crew stops because the other crew team went to the other half, and I covered over 10 miles on my feet. So it is.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so let's get started. So some of these questions came from Instagram. Some of them came from YouTube shorts that I had put up or that you put up and the pre-race interview that you did. So here we go. Betsy Larder 703 said, "What's your most common mantra?"
I kind of look at mantras like programming your mind, like a computer. So with Western States, but I kind of like one that is like slow is fast, from Gary Robbins with his approach to Barkley.
Okay.
So it wasn't that I was going slow at all, but just in certain places, you just like being fluid is excellent. And yes, I can, or something simple like that. I don't even remember what I said, but something simple.
Okay. Do you ever count your steps?
No, definitely not. Like only in Barkley, like if you're like
Using it for
way
navigation.
And navigation, then
Like
it
if
would
you
make
were-
sense. And there are some runners who do that, and I don't do that.
That's really interesting because I do that.
count
I
your
do
steps?
count steps, and it's normally
Really?
and it's normally later in a race. And I normally do anywhere between 30 and 50, and it's typically like my right foot. So every time my right foot falls, it's 1, right foot 2, right foot 3. And I normally will do that up until like 30, and then I'll restart again. And sometimes, like I said, anywhere between like 30 and 50.
Oh,
so
man,
it's
no.
interesting that they ask that because
I'm trying to think of too many things at once, so I think that would just be one more thing in my mind that
Yeah.
I'm trying to focus to remember 4 or 5 items to get at the next aid station or something like that.
It's very kind of like
let
meditative.
Carly
I think that's why I do it. But that was another question that Betsy asked. Another question that Betsy said, "Did you retire from teaching?"
I have not retired from teaching. Yeah, my principal might be like, "Where are you, Harvey?"
Yeah.
So in the fall, because I take leave without pay when I do a lot of these events, like Bigs, for example, and in this fall we're going to be doing the race in Botswana, which is going to take a couple weeks with the salt flat.
Yes. Okay. Jet Fuel 3053 asked, "How did Harvey's Western States set him up for Badwater? Is he feeling optimistic for that? And is he heat training specifically?" So let's just backtrack really quick. How many days between Western States finish and Badwater start?
It's about 3 weeks between the two.
3 weeks. Okay.
Yep, and honestly, I feel like it really is excellent, and it gives me enough time to get back to almost 100%, or maybe above what I would have been, because it's just the climbing and descents. I mean, it has more climbing and descent than Badwater, so Badwater will seem easier in that factor. And it's also a hot race, so it's like it lends itself well to Badwater. There's been a lot of runners who have successfully run the 2 races back to back. Scott Jurek, for example, and also Pete Kostelnik. He ran about a time similar to mine in Western States, and then he won Badwater. So I feel like, it's a great training race. Yeah, I'm excited for Badwater.
Okay. Kelly Lehman said, "Great job and always with a smile. What are some differences between Western States and some other races you've done?" Which I think you kind of touched base on that in the pre-race interview that we did. So let me skip down to this next question. What kind of mentality did you have going in, and did it change throughout the race?
Thanks, Kelly, for that. Well, first I'd like to say, it is definitely it's a really amazing race. The race starts the first 3.754 miles. You gain like 2,500 feet. So, and you also have 22,000 feet of descent. So that's very unique. And then there's a lot of coordinating with the crews. So the crews, it's not always easy to get to the runner in this race.
Right.
I mean, I think so. I'd say the volunteer stations were incredible. Across the race, I would say collectively across the full race, like it was the best volunteering and aid stations that I've seen amongst all the ultras I've run.
Yeah, I would say as crew, like that was the best interaction that I've ever had. The volunteers at Western States. So did your mentality, how did it change? Like going into it, did it change throughout the race?
Yeah.
Like, what was your mentality going into it?
Yeah, so this race I knew it was a very competitive race. And I also know that there's a comparative advantage to runners who live in mountainous regions. So coming from Ohio, I mean, it's very difficult to simulate, a 13-mile descent where you're losing like 3,000 feet. I do like, a lot of vert like in Ohio, but like when you're stringing together 300 feet at a time, it's still not quite the same as the fatigue you'll feel in like Western States. Like my mentality going into the race was to race like my best race, but I also didn't have an expectation of like finishing per se in the top 5 runners. Like I knew that one, it was my first time running Western States. So there's a lot to learn and gain, and then set a time and then hopefully go back and beat that time and race against myself. So there are a lot of races where I do focus more on the other runners, maybe not immediately from the start, but earlier in the race. And with Western States, I was really dialed into just run my race. Don't focus on anybody around me, and just focus on what feels like a good pace for myself. So I ran the first like 100K relatively conservative. I took the descents easier because in the training camp we did in the Memorial Day weekend, I really beat up my quads by racing really fast down the mountain on day 2. And so like by the end of this race, I felt like better. Like my quads didn't even feel like they felt a little tired. They felt tired, but I wasn't like really overly sore. And like while I was doing the training camp, I only ran 31 miles and 22 and then 18, then 22. So you run like the last 60 some miles of the course, 70 miles of the course roughly. And it was really informative. So anybody that plans to run Western States, 100%, if you want to have like your best race and also likely your best experience, you should definitely go out to the training weekend. And I really didn't understand like how really like valuable that is. It's super valuable.
And you don't have to be on the roster to participate in that.
No, I didn't.
Weekend.
I didn't know that was even feasible.
Cool.
That you could come and run that.
So okay.
As I got also to like the last, I say, 15, 20 miles. That's when I really started to be even more aggressive and competitive with other runners. So I went from like, just focus on my own pace primarily, to like the last 20 miles, I changed from my Newton trail shoes to my Newton gravity. And it's like a smooth, roughly easier journey the last 20 miles. After you do the really fun river crossing, which that was like my favorite part of the race. And I was able to pick off or catch a number of runners in that last stretch. And the last 20 miles, I think I may have gained like 4 or 5 places.
So with Badwater coming up, what will you or what have you been doing for recovery?
Well, with Badwater coming up, I've been doing continue my heat training. The week after Western States, I took relatively easy. I mean, I ran every day, but it was like easy runs. And we went to the Azores with our Run Quest travel, and that was really amazing because we were able to use the hot springs, which I think are really excellent for heat training. They can be on par with saunas, absolutely equal or more. It was a great place for recovery. We also did a 15K trail race a week after Western States, and that was kind of nice to get some faster miles in there. But it was just great, like training with a group of people. And now we're just less than 8 days away from the race, and feel like we've got a great race ahead.
Yeah. All right. Next set of questions from KYMCA person 8063 says, "Great job. I got to see you leaving Forest Hill. How much fluid do you try to take in hourly in that type of heat? And do you shoot for the same 250 to 400 calories per hour that you do in the backyards?"
Thank you for the question and also the cheers. Forest Hill was like a festival. Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely like one of the best places
so
for
cool.
ultras. It's a little tiny town. And it's really the one that you run through in the whole race. And so many people are there cheering, clapping for everybody from the first to the last runner through. So that was beautiful. But I would say I was filling up 2 bottles that I had in my pack that were each about, I think, 500 or 0.5 liters, half a liter. So I was drinking a liter, and I think typically I was hitting an aid station every maybe hour and a half to 2 hours at the most. So, and I tried to drink a little bit more, especially in the canyons. When I was at the aid station, I tried to just drink some Coca-Cola real fast and then fill up my 2 drinks. And I feel that overall I was fairly good on the drinking aspect and staying hydrated. I could have probably drank a little bit more in the hot section. I had my tailwind with me when my crew was there, but at the aid stations, I really didn't like the electrolyte drink that they had. Is the one thing because they had amazing ice and all kinds of other refreshments, but the electrolyte drink just really didn't settle with me that well. So I could have done better with that. And then in calories wise, I would say I definitely didn't consume as many calories as I would in like a backyard ultra. And I was aiming to take in my tailwind. I also would eat some additional something every 45 minutes, which was maybe 100 calories. So I would say I was probably on the lower end of that, like the 250 calories. And then actually in the last 20 miles, even though I felt rather good and I was passing runners, I wasn't hitting my top gear. Like I could tell I was kind of running low on fumes because I was having that other electrolyte drink that I had drank from the aid station wasn't really something that was appealing to me. And at mile 93, I did get a couple cups of vegetable broth, which doesn't have calories, but it does have the sodium, which helped to keep me hydrated. But I wasn't hitting my most efficient calories the last 20 miles of the race. And even throughout the race, I probably could have benefited more. But being out in the wilderness and carrying what you're carrying, it's not like I have a crew member every mile toss me a banana, toss me whatever it is. So I could have done a better job, and I hope to do a better job in Bigfoot 200.
Okay, so any final thoughts on Western State?
Yeah, it's a beautiful race, and I absolutely would love to go back. It's really difficult to get in, as we all know. I think next year they're expecting in 2025 they'll have over 10,000 people apply. So, I mean, there's 375 roughly on average places. So, unless you finish in the top 10 or get a golden ticket, it's a lottery game. So, yeah, it may be 6 or 7 or 8 years before I get back into Western States again, but I would definitely love to run the race and aim to beat this year's time.
Okay, so all right then, Badwater in 8 days.
Badwater is coming up, and we love Badwater.
We do love Badwater.
It's still my favorite race. I love it. Death Valley is my favorite national park. The race is like a pilgrimage. It's a really the landscape and the vistas you have for 50 miles are just out of this world. And the team element is incredible. Having a crew that follows you.
Okay, well, stay tuned for any Badwater updates that we throw out there. And thanks for joining us.
That's right, honey.
Yeah, and leave a comment, and please be sure to subscribe. And we'll see you later.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Bam. All right, I think that was pretty good.
Okay. Welcome to Living Ultra with Harvey and Kelly.
And Carly.
And Carly today, where we talk about all things ultra running. I'm Harvey. No, I'm not.
That's cute, honey.